What's up guys, Amél here back in the studio. Today we're going to be going over the FLP of Limitless by Garrix and Mesto, but it's a little bit special because I actually teamed up with my good friend SheepzZ to do this one. He had started the idea, sent it over to me, and I helped him sort of finish up the project and polish it and get all the sound design as best we could. So we've actually created sort of this big full ID version. I think Garrix might have played this at either Lollapalooza or something like that. So we sort of tried to recreate this entire track in that style with this Lana Del Rey a cappella, but I'll get into that later. For now, let's jump into the project and start going over some of the sound design. Okay, starting out in the very beginning, we have a couple of different layers here. For this sort of background element, we actually just sampled the original track. It sounds like this. I'm sure we could have probably done something like that in silent. It's just like a little saw pluck sort of thing, but we just sampled it. Then we have a couple different layers here. I think these are either in silent or serum. They might, yeah, this one's in serum. It sounds like this. Sort of this very cool, airy kind of thing. It's a sine wave and a little bit of saw, I think, as well as some white noise. So pretty simple, just a lot of reverb on there to give it sort of that atmospheric tone. Then under it, to give it sort of a little more attack and a little more pluck feel, we have this, I think it's also serum, and it sounds like this. It sort of has this big sort of pitch down thing in the beginning. So together, those add up and make a sound like this. Then under it, we have just a pretty simple saw bass, sort of like a respace thing. I think it's also in serum. Now, as we come over a couple bars over to the right, we have some more elements adding in. So we have some percussions and drum loops. Then we also add these chords. These might be in silent, actually. Yeah, these are silent. These sort of like Garrix classic kind of chords. And on top of that, we also have this build-up lead, which sounds like this. This sort of like squarey thing. I think it's in serum, probably. Nope, silent one. Okay, so then the song builds and we have all these build-up drums. Everything goes up. We have some risers and different effects going on. Nothing too complicated. And then, of course, we have the drop. So let's talk about the drop. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to isolate the instruments separately and then I'll isolate just the drums. So this is what just the instruments sound like. I'm also going to put on the metronome just for time reference. It's actually a pretty simple drop when it comes down to it. We have a lead layer, we have a tiny bit of white noise, which is essentially just part of the lead layer, sort of supporting that sound. And then we have a sub bass, and this is pretty much a sub bass here. Just we took up some samples and just chopped it up. Let's look at the lead first. This sound is actually created by two synths. The first one is this one, which sounds like this. It's made with two sine waves, and this one is actually pitched down 7 semitones, so it's sort of creating this weird like harmonic frequencies. I think we actually might have based this sound off of, there's a tutorial by, I forget his name. Anyway, there's these sine waves going together, then it goes over here and distorts it together with this white noise, just a little bit of white noise, some compression, EQ, and then a little bit of hyper dimension to sort of expand it out so it's not just mono in the center. Then the second layer we have going on is actually just white noise. So it's white noise and then it has this LFO on here. So it sounds like this. Sort of just adds this weird gritty texture, and I have that expanded out to the sides. As far as processing goes, there's actually not too much. You can see there's quite a bit of plugins on here, but a lot of them are actually muted. So really it's only a little bit of compression with OTT. We have reverb here, and then I guess another reverb. I think this just automates at the very end. And we have a filter, which also is automated, and I actually use Serum Effects for a lot of stuff. In this case, I used it for basically just widening the sound up. So I have some chorus on there and a hyper dimension. So that just widens the sound and makes it, again, not so mono in the center. For the bass, this is pretty simple. I forget if we made this in Serum or I think it's Silent 1. It's just, it's a fairly basic sub bass, but it has this very put a lot of pitch on it, so it gives it a big hard attack. It's very punchy. It almost sounds like a bit of a kick, so it's a very punchy bass. We have that going on for the first part in here. And then, like I said, in the second part, we actually just have this sample which sounds like this. kind of this very aggressive. I think we cut out a lot of the low end in here, or sorry, a lot of the high end, so it's just a lot of low. Sounds almost like a sub, but it has a bit more harmonic frequencies than just like a sine wave or something like that. Yeah, so you can see for processing on that sample, I've boosted some mid lows right around 300 hertz, cut off a lot of the highs, added some sausage fattener for saturation, and then I think this is serum effects. No, this is, I guess I'm just making this signal mono, so it's not too out to the sides. The key to this bass right here, this sort of second section sub, I'll still call it a sub because it's pretty much doing the job of the sub bass. But the key here is that you can see there's these big spaces. So it kind of does this really cool back and forth playing off of the kick and these toms. So here's the drums. And you'll see that this bass kind of just hits right on these offbeat parts in the center. So let me play it all together. Yeah, it almost gives it that sort of like slap housey offbeat kind of feel. And then at the end, instead of having a bass, I just have this little shot. It's sort of like a little sine down drop thing. In just a second, I'll play all of it all together, including the leads. But first, I'm just going to go over a couple of these drums. It's really pretty simple. There's a kick, there's a couple offbeat toms, a clap, and then just a tiny bit of percussion loop. But it's a pretty simple drop. And then in the second part, we just add in this super simple sort of hat loop. And of course, the most important thing, which I forgot to mention, is this sample right here. We just actually snagged it from the original track, just cut it out. So it's nothing fancy. It's not like some sick preset. With all that combined, the full drop sounds like this together. One other thing I forgot to mention is these little vocal samples. I'm actually not sure where we got these. SheepzZ had already added these in the project. I just edited them a little bit to clean it up, but it sounds like this. Just super cool, like atmospheric sort of tones. Alright, then like I said in the beginning of the video, we actually sort of based this track around the ID version that Martin played. So coming into this second part, into the second break, it actually goes in and has this Summertime Sadness a cappella. And so I'll just give you a little preview and then we'll break down some of the elements too.
I got my red dress on tonight, dancing in the dark in the pale moonlight. Done my hair up real big, beauty queen style, high heels off, I'm feeling alive.
Alright, so following sort of the general vibe of this whole song, there's not a lot of elements. Like I said in the drop too, this is pretty simple. So it's not one of the songs where you're adding a bunch of layers and making this huge crazy sound. It's more that you're taking pretty sparse elements and just picking very specific sounds that sound good together. Here we have, I think it's pretty much the same pad, this Martin Garrix pad from before. And then we also have it layered with a piano, which is, yeah, just FL Studio stock keys. They sound like this together. Layered under that, we have a bass. I think it might be the same bass as from before. Yep, this just simple saw bass. We have some atmospheric samples down here. We have a kick. And then this might be one of my favorite sounds, and that is this sound that I created. I think it's in Silent 1. So this is how this sound is made. It's in Silent 1. I think we just started with a preset and then I altered it to get the desired sound. But essentially we have kind of a squarey sort of wave here and then a bunch of saw waves added up. And the key here is that they're very heavily distorted. If I turn it off, it sounds like this. Versus turn it on, gives it that very sort of aggressive distorted sound. Now let me play this sound with and without the effects. So this is without the effects and you're gonna hear a big difference. You can still kind of get the gist of the sound, but the effects are very important on here. So we have an EQ boosting some of these higher mids, taking out some of the highs, Camel Crusher to add a lot of distortion and compression, another EQ, I guess boosting some of the highs back. I narrowed the sound just a tiny bit, and then it says Valhalla Vintage Verb, but it's actually just this stock reverb too, and I took a lot of the dry signal away, so it makes it very reverby and sort of in the background. And so all together, then with the effects on, it sounds like this again. Down here, we're coming into this next section, and we just add one little element, which is this ARP. Forget if this is a synth. Yeah, it's just this little simple saw pluck that we created. And then it goes back once again to this buildup, and then finally the drop. And it's pretty much the same as the first drop. We just added the percussions in a little bit sooner. Yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. Thanks so much for staying through this whole video. And of course, before we leave, I'll play through the entire track. But as always, if you want to download this FLP, I'll be uploading it on the usual site. And also, of course, make sure to go check out SheepzZ music. I think we're going to be working on some more projects soon. So if you like this one, stay tuned for more just like it. Otherwise, that's going to be it for this one, guys. Enjoy this playthrough of the full track, and I will catch you back in the next one. See ya.